Why are you so much taller than me? Help. There we go.
It is 6:01 and we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome to the Lake Worth Beach April 29th, 2025 utility meeting. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Betty Rush is absent. Vice Mayor Sarah Maliga is absent. Vice Mayor Pro Tem May.
Present. Third
Commissioner
string
McCoy
back.
Is present.
Commissioner Segrich.
Present.
Let's see. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Segrich.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Are there any additions, deletions, or reordering to the agenda?
I don't have anything.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. There is no public comment on presentations. We'll start with the water utility update by Vaughn Baker.
Hello, Vaughn
Hello.
Baker, Water Utilities. It's been a long time since we've had a water update, so some of them are not so recent anymore.
Okay.
But for a little over a month now, I would say we have Brian King from the electric department over helping me in water as well, especially as I prepare for maternity leave. So it's nice to have a little bit of continuity, you know, somebody who's obviously extremely experienced and familiar with city protocol and can kind of hold down the fort while I will be gone. So that has
Congratulations.
Thank you. That has been very helpful.
Huh? Well, I don't think the baby cares. It's coming.
Oh my goodness. So again, not so recent. It's been a little over a month now, but we had the Palm Beach State College water treatment students come through our plant for a tour, which that's been happening, I would say, just about every term they have for that class for, you know, quite a few years now. We have hired some of the students that have come through on that tour, so that's a nice thing. For the PFAS class action settlements, we had been phase 2 with 3M and DuPont just because we had not tested every single well that we have before the settlement date of their lawsuit. They are now pursuing Tyco and BASF, and we did get in for the phase 1. Our claim has been filed, so for that we should hopefully be eligible for a larger settlement than the first one we had submitted for. And then as far as projects, we have the dual zone monitoring well, which, as we all know, has been talked about a lot. It's a big deal. Our hydrogeology consulting firm has provided the 60% design documents. So we're reviewing those and the project is moving. And Parrot Cove, which is the project currently in construction on the golf course, 3 out of the 4 outfalls involved in that project are complete. So we're hopefully wrapping that up by the summer and, you know, cashing out our grant reimbursement and calling it a day.
Good.
So
I've heard
moving on to the
that
next
there
one.
is less flooding at the golf course. The
Already.
golfers are happier.
That's great.
Yes.
So we're trying to keep things moving. There are, you know, additional outfall projects that will follow closely behind this one. But making good progress. So
Good. Does anybody have any questions for? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you to Brian. I assume you did instruct Brian to keep the water and the electric lines kind of separate while he's over there, not, you know, crisscross them.
That'd be bad.
Good. I just wanted to thank yourself and Manager Brown for coming out a while ago now, when it wasn't quite so hot, and we went and looked at the 16th Avenue outfall area. looking to make sure that when we redo that, that we maintain public access as much as possible. And then some, for just informal paddleboard, canoe, kayak, whatever, and still accommodate the drainage. So I appreciate you coming out. I was supposed to send a thank you and I never got around to it. And I'm hoping that we will also, as we've talked about a lot, I forget which one we decided. There was one of the two, Wellesley or 18th, one of them. It was obvious to us that don't do it at that one, do it at the other one. And I don't remember. I hope you folks remember which it was, but when we look at it, we'll remember.
Either one, I can tell you that my neighbors would be very grateful if they had access as well.
I
Yeah.
think it was not Wellesley because that one is just a
It was too much.
concrete behemoth.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for that. Hopefully we will eventually get there on access at that one too. So thank you. And if he doesn't approve the maternity leave, I will. So
Anybody else questions? Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have the electric utility update by Ed Liberty.
Okay. So it's been a while since we talked about electric. For the record, this is Ed Liberty, Electric Utility Director. Number of things to go over today. It's a long list of things because we haven't caught up in a while. We will start with PCA. I'll give you, Brian King is here. He'll give you that handout. At a very, very high level, I can say that we are what we call negative on the checking account, positive on the savings account. The net is $418,000 to the good on the positive side. So one's negative, you'll get the package. And this was just assembled literally about 2 hours ago with the latest information. So while we're negative on the checking account, we are positive enough on the what we call the savings account.
Wait, hold on one second. Two things. One, is it on the screen? Do we have it for the people in the
No,
room?
we just finished it literally 2 hours ago.
Okay, can you tell us what page you're on?
Okay, right now I'm looking at page 5,
Thank you.
which is the curve that has the 2 swim lanes in it, if you will, the dotted lines in between. And we strive to keep the balance between those dotted lines.
Okay, thank you.
So you can see we're over on the far right there. It says 400 and trying to focus my
Change.
glasses, $418,925,
Okay.
which is a little bit below the minimum $500,000 that we'd like to have.
Mhm.
But if you remember, we raised the PCA effective March 1. So the effects of that rate increase will start to come in the April customer payments.
Okay.
So we expect that to turn. However, it's going to jump by $500,000 to the good when we receive a refund from FPL for the transmission rate case. So if you recall, I know you folks don't think about this all the time like we do, but FPL had raised their transmission rates. We filed through FMPA an intervention in that process, went into a long, long process of negotiation and reaching a settlement with all of the affected parties. The net effect of that was that the proposed rate, which they implemented, was reduced, and we received a refund back to day one of the increase, which for Lake Worth Beach translates to about $500,000, between $500,000 to $510,000 in that range.
Mhm.
We have exchanged the banking information for direct deposit for wire transfer, and they will be making that payment soon. So that $418,000 or so will increase by $500,000, I would expect in the next few weeks. So we transferred all that information to them about a week ago, and they'll have it ready to process. So that's good.
Wait, hold on one second. Do you want us to ask questions on each item or do you want us to wait?
Oh, you can ask on each other.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Just out of curiosity, what was the basis that we and FMPA and others won on? Why were they not allowed to, or what went wrong with their request for raising them? I'm just curious.
I don't remember the exact details, but typically it's a discussion over the allowable rate of return on the investment and the order of magnitude of the investments that are being made.
They reached a little far and somebody said, yeah, no.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah, generally speaking. And I have to say, though, that when we settle, we agree. And one of the things that we can say very confidently is that FPL is a premier builder, owner, operator of transmission systems, and we benefit significantly from that. Remember that our canal project, that tie line, those 2 lines that they're building to the canal station are now energized, by the way, were built at their expense. That's one of the things that's in their transmission recovery process. So It's a fair settlement, and it's appropriate. And we want them to continue to invest in transmission and provide that reliable service.
Yeah.
People don't realize 99+% of the energy that we use in our utility comes through the FPL system. So it's important that it be robust and outstanding, and it
Mhm.
is.
It's not generated by them, but it goes on their lines.
32 to 33% is generated by them in the St. Lucie nuclear plant.
Right.
And we are a participant in the FMPA project, which is a part owner in that plant. So
Right.
yeah, 33% does
And
come from them.
I assume if I remember right, our solar fields will also come on those lines. Is that right?
That's
Or-
correct. Our
yeah.
imported solar energy and our supplemental energy will come through those lines as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead.
So that we'll move on from the PCA. You have the packet. We will get the packet to the clerk. It's public information, and the clerk can have that. Next item of information is the Solar Energy Loan Fund. I was contacted, I believe it was last week. It feels like a year ago already, but I think it was only last week, by the Solar Energy Loan Fund. We budget approximately $100,000 a year, which is our contribution as a city to the Solar Energy Loan Fund, or we refer to as SELF. For the benefit of the public, I know all of you are familiar with it. SELF implements or helps customers implement the projects which either the customer finds on their own or discovered as an outcome of an energy audit that we've performed for that customer. So as we perform the energy audits, we turn over those results and refer the customer to the Solar Energy Loan Fund to help them implement the project, which could mean outright grants to them, low interest loans, referrals to contractors, helping to oversee the project, make sure it meets the intent. It was the opinion of the Solar Energy Loan Fund's leadership that that contribution was not one that they could accept going forward, not because we did anything wrong, they greatly appreciate it, but they didn't feel that they were able to do all of the things that they intended to do in terms of results. They are active in our area. They want to remain active in the area, but they no longer thought it was fair to ask us for a $100,000 contribution. What they did ask for, and I've agreed to it, I'm assuming you will agree to this as well, that we continue to provide the in-kind services. That means administrative help when they need it, the use of our offices, bill stuffers, space on the bill, good spot on our website, continued referrals of energy audits, things like that. So all the things that we can do that are not requiring that $100,000 contribution, I am all for continuing, and I think it's a good thing for us to do. They have been able to execute on some projects. It's a few projects. They produced a quarterly report for us. It's not as many as they would have liked. They've had some turnover in their staffing, but I think we should continue our part of it, and they're going to continue to work the territory and be of service to our customers. And I think if there's more that we can do in the future and it makes more sense, they'll come back. But I think we should continue with the in-kind services.
Okay, we're going to go with Commissioner Segrich first.
Just a quick question on the solar. We have a limitation on what each household can put, correct?
That's correct. That's unrelated to the Solar Energy Loan Fund. But yes, we have what's referred to as a Tier 1 program under state law, which is 10 kW or less, is the maximum or the largest size unit a customer can install. However, there's also two other limits which have to be kept in mind. One is a customer cannot install a system that'll produce more energy than they consumed in the prior 12 months. So they have to have a system that's right-sized for their home. We're not looking for systems that are going to be purposely net exporters of power to our grid. In addition to that, we have to confirm that the service line that feeds that home and the adjacent transformer are not going to be harmed. In other words, if they're going to produce more energy back to the grid than the service line connecting the home to the grid can handle, we can't allow that. So we'd have to pass that expense on to them. So when you do all the math, it's very rare to find somebody that installs a system that's larger than what they need.
And are there any changes to that might increase solar adoption within Lake Worth Beach and utilization of this program?
Actually, solar adoption in Lake Worth Beach is very high. We have 335 customers at last count, approximately 2.5 megawatts of solar connected, which is almost 2 to 2.5% of our peak load. So it's been a high enough issue that during what we refer to as a black start, that we become concerned about being able to maintain constant frequency and voltage. So the program is doing well. It's growing at the rate of, I want to say, 1 to 3 customers per month. We can get you a report on that if you want to see it. We track it monthly. It's been a very healthy program. But at this point, staff has not seen a need to expand beyond a tier 1 program. It seems to be doing well at that number.
Thank you.
Keep in mind that when a customer generates power for themselves, we lose revenue. So we have 335 customers who we used to sell all the energy to. Now we only sell a minimum of their energy to them.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Two things. One on the solar energy loan fund, just a clarification, there's a technical name for it, which I don't remember, but it's a specialized form of a nonprofit community bank with a very interesting model that if you want to get a loan from them, it's not based on credit rating, it's based on your ability to pay. So it makes it accessible. They're very specifically, primarily targeted toward low and middle income, to veterans, to single heads of household, a variety of things. I've already met with the person who is taking over our territory. I did that last Friday because the director of the bank let me know that they were thinking of this change. I was a little reluctant about it, but I agreed with their logic that, you know, wasn't really appropriate for the bank for us to continue subsidizing if we weren't doing as many loans as we had all hoped that they would. And I'm very glad to hear of Director Liberty's support for the sort of soft support kind of things, make sure that there's good communication with the auditors, our energy audit program and so on. To comment a little bit on Commissioner Segrich's question, one of the things that has bothered me for quite a while is the logic of asking or requiring customers to size their system based on past usage. To me, that goes against logic, because what you're trying to do is convert as many uses, especially to clean energy, to electric from other fossil fuel burning ones like a gas stove or a gas water heater. So it is quite conceivable, or that you might want to buy an electric vehicle. All of those things might not be in your past 12 months usage, but might be in your plans, and you might well want to size your system for bigger than that. My own feeling is we should change our rules to allow customers to make their own choices on sizing. That's
So
really up
can
to
I,
them.
can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because I think you're absolutely, this is a legitimate conversation to be had. I don't know if it's appropriate right in the middle of his report. Can we put it aside and bring it back, Mr. Manager, so that we can talk about that? The pros and the cons when Mr. Liberty's ready to kind of talk about it with us?
Well, he's ready. I mean, it's
I
it's
just
a
don't think, I
policy
think that I agree with you, and we don't,
policy
but we're
decision.
not going to make a policy decision in the middle of his report. So as much as I actually agree with you, let's just put it aside and bring it back when it's an appropriate time to talk about.
What would that time be, Mr. Manager?
I'm going to look at Mr. Liberty and
Yeah, this has actually been discussed in great depth over multiple years here in the city. So, and I can assure you, we have followed the state law, and the intent of the state law was net metering. It was not net production. When the state law was put in place, I believe in 2009, off the top of my head, it was intended to allow customers to offset their production. It was not intended to create hundreds of mini power plants pushing power back into the utility. The other aspect of this, and we'll get into this more detail in the conversation, is that we still have the obligation to serve and provide capacity. Because as I think as many people realize, solar doesn't work at night. It doesn't work well on a cloudy day, yet we still have to supply all those customers' needs. So it makes it very, very difficult. And you get into reverse power flows in the system, which was not designed to reverse flow. That doesn't mean it can't be done, but there's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of reading to be done on both sides of that discussion that can be found with a very simple internet search. I'm not going to say you should use the Google monopoly to go find it, but there's a lot of things that you can find about net metering and the pluses and minuses. But you have to keep in mind what is legal in the state of Florida, regardless of what we want to do and what is not. So there's a lot to this. It's a very complicated subject that you could spend days talking about and still not agree on what's right, as we have found in many states where this is tackled. However, can say that across the nation, the changes are being made to these programs that make them far less lucrative, and they've been challenged in the courts and by public service commissions, and ultimately settled with the proponents of expanded net metering to the type of program that we have today, more in line with what we have. So it's a very different issue, very difficult issue.
Okay.
So Vice Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
is this something you would like to see on a next utility agenda as far as a discussion item, or how would you like staff to bring this back?
Why don't we bring it up at the meeting on Friday? The pre-agenda meeting on Friday, and if it's something we want to have put on the next utility meeting, we can agree to do that. Does that work for you? Does that work for you? Okay, that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Continue with your report.
Next item is the new FPL interconnection at Canal is energized. I think I might have mentioned that before. They are flowing through the midpoint breaker. We are not yet flowing through the entire system, but it's in theory available as a backup. It'll remain hot the way it is. It's flowing FPL energy into the station and back out of the station. It's not flowing all the way through to Hypoluxo, for example. And that is pending final relay coordination for the tripping schemes that we need to have in place, and then final approval by CERC, which is a regulatory body at the federal level. So that's coming along well. So we're continuing to march down that. I'm pleased to report that, as we had planned, the steam units S3 and S5 have been retired. Those two units, which date to 1965 and 1975 to 78 timeframe, have now been retired after many, many years of service to the city. In terms of affected staff, all of the affected staff, except for one who has retired or is in the process of retiring, the others were all successfully placed in open positions that existed in the city, I believe all within the water and sewer department. So, and some remained in the electric utility. So we did not create new positions. These folks were able to land in open positions that were created in the organization and budgeted. I mentioned the FPL rate case as being settled. And by the way, I should mention that those two units basically had what we would call uncontrolled emissions, meaning that when they ran, their emissions were commensurate with the types of emissions you would see from electric generators in the 1960s and 1970s. So by today's standards, they were nowhere near clean units. They haven't run very much in the last few years, but they're now retired, and 35 megawatts of steam goes away.
Is your light on?
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
The additional retirement, which remains on track, is the Stanton project, which is a unit owned by Orlando Utilities Commission and FMPA. FMPA is a minority owner, and we are a piece of the FMPA piece. So we get 11 megawatts from that unit. That unit remains on track to be retired at the end of this year. So December of 2025 will be the last month that we will have coal in the portfolio for the city of Lake Worth Beach. After that, it'll be retired for our purposes. Now, it's my understanding that OUC is going to keep the unit alive for their purposes. However, we will no longer incur billings associated with it. The end of life of that plant is covered by reserves, which are built up over the years to deal with long-term layup and decommissioning issues with the plant. In our particular plant, we're in the process of decommissioning out of our own pocket. So we're keeping a few staff there to run the units that were not retired and to decommission the plant as it goes. I should mention that in our plan for staffing our office space for our new staff that we'll be hiring for the execution of the grant, we're looking at building modular office space on the turbine deck of the old power plant. So it's a rather strong building. We'll probably have to redo the bathrooms and restrooms in the facility. But we've had some modular space in there in the past for conference space and meeting rooms. And it looks like a good solution rather than renting temporary trailers and staking them down in the parking lot behind a 1900 building to repurpose that turbine deck floor and put some modular space in there. So we're looking at that. That'll save us some money. Okay, solar. FMPA Solar 2 project, the Rice Creek site, 13.25 megawatts. If you recall, we began receiving test power in November, December of 24. It went commercial in January of 25. So 13.25 megawatts is now flowing to us and doing well.
Now, does
Interesting.
that make up for the coal that we lost?
We haven't lost
percentage-wise?
we haven't lost the coal yet.
No, but
It'll-
when we do, I mean,
Oh,
is it-
yes,
is
it-
it, does it flip
it-
basically?
it'll flip and I'll give you the numbers in a second and show you what happens with percentages. But very interesting, the natural gas prices for the month of January, February, March got high enough. They averaged $4.82, that it was actually cheaper to have that solar energy coming into the portfolio than buying supplemental power under the OUC supplemental contract. So we actually saved $160,000, $161,000 and 791. 161,791 is what we saved those 3 months collectively. That's because natural gas prices have gotten so high. Now, conversely, when natural gas prices are low, you could argue that we're overpaying for that solar, but I think it's a good trade-off and it's a reasonable investment. The next piece that'll come online for FMPA Solar 2 is referred to as the Whistling Duck site. That's 20.9 megawatts, almost 21. That'll start flowing in December of 2025. Construction on that site is underway. I've seen the pictures. They're underway. Materials should have been received at the site in March, April, and they're expecting a commercial operation date of December of 2025. So that's coming along. The bad news is FMPA Solar 3, which we intended to take 20.7 megawatts from what they call the Leyland or Leland site, has been terminated by the contractor who was building it, by the developer who's going to own it and sell the power. Their reason for termination is that their interconnection costs to interconnect to the Duke transmission system went well beyond what they were willing to absorb. And that contract gave them an off-ramp if certain costs that were beyond their control got too high for them to absorb. It was their determination that those interconnection costs on the Duke system had gotten so high that they could not absorb that cost and perform under that contract. So they exercised their right to terminate the project. So we will not be getting that 20.7 megawatt piece from the Leyland project. However, we're still in pretty good shape. So I'll read off some numbers which will actually be produced and published in our annual report for the electric utility, which I expect we should publish in the next couple of weeks. It'll be on citizenownedergy.com for those of you interested, and we will also circulate it to you electronically. But for 2024, if we look at our portfolio, roughly 62% of our portfolio was satisfied by natural gas. 32.7% came from nuclear power. 4.3+% came from coal. And solar was only 0.96%. Where did the 0.96% come from in 24? So remember, we have our own city solar plant, which is very, very expensive, but it's at the landfill for 1.7 megawatts, and it produces power over the course of the year. And we began to get some test power. So we did pretty well. And I'll point out that when I talk about coal at 4.34%, that's power that came from the coal unit, which was not always burning coal. It burns a blend of coal and or natural gas at times. So it needs natural gas to start up. And when natural gas prices are low enough, it'll burn natural gas. When they need to burn off some coal, it'll burn some coal. So it's not 100% coal in that unit, but we call it all coal because it comes from that old coal unit. Fast forward to 26. So 25 is the year in transition. So what should we see in 2026? Natural gas will drop to 49.6. So let's call that 50%. So 50% will come from natural gas versus 62% in 2024. So natural gas will be declining. Coal goes to zero. The 4+% that's coming from that coal plant will go to zero. Nuclear will stay constant at about where it is today, 32.5, 32.6%. Solar goes from 0.96 to 17.7. So a big jump up in solar during calendar 26. So that's taking us in the right direction. These are very rough numbers because we're projecting ahead on how many megawatt hours of energy we're going to need, how available the plants will be, what nuclear outages will exist or not exist in that particular
I
year.
love how Ed rounds to the 100th
Yes.
and then says they're rough numbers.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is when we put the little pie charts together, and Brian loves it when I do this, and he puts a lot of work into this, and I add the numbers up and it doesn't equal 100. And because it's a rounding error. So we try to fix the numbers. And we say, yeah, it's all an estimate anyway. But I think what's really interesting for 2026 is that 50% of the energy that we deliver to our customers will have come from a carbon-free resource. So that's a combination of nuclear and solar. So we'll be 50%. If you're driven by environmental targets, that's a good number. That's better than many, many utilities in the region. If you're driven by pure economics, both are fine. You look at it and you say only 50% of our energy supply portfolio is subject to natural gas pricing. So that's a pretty good balance. Many of the other utilities in the state are in the range of 70 to 80% exposure to natural gas. We're lower than that. So we should see less volatility in our prices for our customers than if we were at a much higher percent of natural gas. Solar is priced at a known price for 20 years, and nuclear is at a known price for many, many years because of the way those plants are capitalized. The fuel is a capital expense, and the operating expenses are very flat. So we're in good shape. We finished fiscal 24 with a total all-in energy cost of just slightly under $60 per megawatt hour. That's substantially lower than the low $70 range that we were in through the end of 2018. So we're doing pretty well at rebalancing energy supply, reducing costs, and taking on debt, and managing to keep our rates. I looked at some data. Our bills, a typical bill at the end of 2024 was within, I want to say, 20 or 30 cents of the same bill in 2014.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yep. And for 3 years in a row, we were lower than a nearby utility, and we expect to be lower this year as well.
Excellent.
So we're trending in the right direction. Everything is not perfect, but we're trending in the right direction.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Segrich.
Just a quick question. How does the price of nuclear compare to solar and natural gas right now?
That's a very good question. It depends on how you measure. So nuclear looks higher, but the difference is that you get effectively 97% capacity value out of the 22 megawatts. If I had 22 megawatts of solar, I'd best get 45% of capacity value. I need both the capacity and the energy. So the way I explain that to the folks in the public is capacity is the reason you don't put your finger in the outlet. Please don't do that. That has the capacity to hurt you. We need capacity to make sure we can serve all the energy. Energy is what you get when you actually plug something in and start
So
drawing in.
capacity is like the potential energy?
It's potential energy, exactly. And energy is kinetic energy. We need to buy both. Our energy needs, our customers want to be able to flip the switch and have the light come on. They want the confidence that when they turn that switch on, the lights are going to come on. You don't get that with solar because most obvious, it doesn't work at night. And after a cloudy day or during a cloudy day, it works a heck of a lot less. It'll work a little bit, but you get a lot less. So you need that capacity. So if you were to add back into the solar equation the cost of adding capacity that will perform on demand, the solar number will get higher. So think of the solar number as the cost of energy and half the capacity, and less than half the capacity, which we need.
Good. Okay. Are you good? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And a thought on that, a couple questions. I'm sorry to hear that the Solar 3 one has disappeared, because that was a big chunk, 20 something or other plus.
Would have been 20, a little over 20 megawatts, but we still have 34 megawatts plus our own 1.7. So we're 35 plus megawatts of solar, which for a city of our size that has 103 megawatt is a very substantial amount.
Couple things. Was this totally unanticipated? I know that you and I had a number of discussions of the interconnect thing, and that it was sort of an exchange idea that, the power would go one way because it was closer to tie into that line and all this stuff. I'm a little surprised that this showed up at the last minute as being a much larger expense than anybody reasonably could have foreseen. That seems odd. Do you have any insight into that?
Yes. So the types of things that they experience when they secure a site, they have to have the cost to interconnect. They build basically a transmission interconnection to connect into the 138 kV transmission system. In addition to that, anybody who's plugging into the transmission system also has to pay for upgrades that may have to be made to the system to accept that amount of energy and move it safely and reliably on the system. So Duke Energy has a lot to say about that. Actually, not because they're they want to have a say about it, but they're the owners of that transmission system, same as FPL or OUC or TECO. If you own a transmission system, these are federal rules, and you have the ability to, estimate those costs and pass them on to developer. So developers will typically put together a cost estimate of what that can be, but they don't know the transmission system to the point where they can anticipate what the costs are going to be, especially when there are literally probably thousands of megawatts of plants that are trying to get interconnected. So it all has to be modeled and determine what the costs are and then allocate the costs accordingly. So it doesn't surprise me that the costs are higher than they expected, especially when you take a look at what's happening with supply chain and the fact that the materials that you use to improve the transmission system are becoming more and more expensive, as well as the labor and the cost of money.
I guess I understand, but roughly ballpark figure, very ballpark for any portion of Florida, about how many megawatts or gigawatts are floating around on it at any given time.
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
But ballpark.
I don't have a ballpark on the amount of gigawatts in the system. I really don't.
I guess I find that a little hard to believe, given that you're on a number of Florida boards and things. You must have some idea. It's bigger than it's much bigger than 100 megawatts. Because we're 100.
Yeah, we're 100. And the FPL system has 6 million customers plus. So and so you could take that and extrapolate.
So the addition of 23 megawatts onto what is very likely at least a gigawatt.
No, it wasn't 23 megawatts. It was the addition of the 75 megawatt plant. One of the reasons
it's still small potatoes compared to the grid. And it seems hard to imagine that this suddenly had, I don't know. That seems odd.
Yeah,
but
it's hard for me to get into the details of that contract and their cost structure, which is that they're a private party, and second guess them on what their costs were. I know FMPA counsel and FMPA staff that has that confidential information did spend a fair amount of time with them, and says, yep, they had the right to do this, and they elected to do it. You can't just terminate the contract without going through a lot of detail with staff.
Right.
But I don't have that information at my fingertips, and I couldn't discuss it in public even if I did. Now,
So
how many gigawatts in the system? I just don't know that off the top of my head on the statewide system.
So Mr. McVoy could make an appointment, come talk to you.
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
And I could query with FMPA.
The other
as to
question
what they saw.
I had was, you mentioned that the our 1 point, a little under 2, whatever it is, 1.5, 1.7 megawatts that we generate on the landfill was very expensive.
Mhm.
Can you tell us something about the operating expenses of that and how the cost per megawatt per kilowatt of that compares to something else operating, not the initial investment, which I agree was.
I
somewhat
believe
above
all
that.
in with our operating expenses, that unit comes in at about $140 a megawatt hour. Whereas
Operating expenses?
the total cost, which includes the debt service on the plant, the operating expenses will be very, very low.
Right.
Because you have to actually go up, but you do have to go up there and do inspections, do maintenance. We do have a fair number of inverter failures. Some of those costs are still being absorbed by the developer of the project, which was Siemens.
Right.
So it'd be very hard to extract what they're actually incurring. There's cutting of the grass, all kinds of stuff that has to be done. But all in, those numbers are it's running us about $140 per megawatt hour. The FMPA solar projects, where FMPA Solar 3, I believe, was going to be under 45. FMPA Solar 2, one unit's at under 45, the other unit's under 35. Substantially lower cost.
But I think it's important for our public to understand that the initial cost, we probably overpaid a good amount. We didn't take advantage. Some of the things didn't exist then. Some of the things that came in with the IRA a few years ago, all of that didn't exist. We probably didn't take advantage of some. So the initial capital cost, that was probably not the best project, but the operating costs, we get that juice for very little at this. It doesn't cost it much. I mean, mowing the lawn and a little bit of checking and swapping out a few inverters now and then, it's pretty small.
Other than the mortgage, which we'll be paying for the next 20 plus, 28 years. But yeah, true. It's
Okay.
Thank you.
That's just, I want to be clear, the separation. too.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Liberty.
Couple more items. We're not
Oh, okay.
not done yet. Um,
Son, your report was too short, clearly.
there's a lot going on, Electric. And I know these are things that you all want to hear.
In
think you wanna hear them.
detail, please.
The draft RFP for the next supplemental contract is underway. Had a working dinner meeting with the consultants at Enfront last week. That's moving along. You're going to hear more tonight about the Series 25 bond for both utilities. And I also want to mention Angelo Kanapich. Angelo is our system operator, one of our system operators. He's retiring tomorrow. He's in the drop. It's a little bit sooner than he thought. I think the date snuck up on him. We're going to miss him greatly. I was gifted this beautiful lamp tonight, put up here on the table, and I think it's appropriate that I'm going to re-gift this
You are welcome to do
Angelo.
so.
23, almost 22 or 23 years with us, and for many of our operators out there doing their work in the dark and rough weather, or even in good weather, Angelo has been the voice on the radio, talking them through the switching instructions and the things they need to do to isolate the system and remain safe, come home alive. He's that voice. And we're going to miss him greatly. So
All right.
if you get a chance to stop by System Operations tomorrow between 11 and 1, he'll be there. Thank him for his years of service. Wonderful person. We're going to miss him.
Awesome. I'm glad that that's going to go to good use.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now it's time for public participation of non-agenda items. Do you have any cards, sir? No cards. Does anybody have a card? The clerk, do we have any? Do we do that online?
So I do not read public participation comments.
Oh, that's right.
And I can tell you there are no comments that were submitted online for me to read tonight.
Okay, super. Then we will move on to new business A, which is resolution 2025, authoring the issuance of the series 2025 consolidated utility revenue bonds. And I believe that's Davenport, or where do we start with that? Yannick? Okay. And let's let them present, and then we'll ask questions at the end, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Kyle?
Yes, sir. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, nice to see you again. Kyle Laux with Davenport. Hope everybody's well this evening. You may recall beginning of April, was there with you in person. And we talked through this process that is part and parcel of your budget, your capital program in terms of borrowing dollars for the various capital projects that between Ed's group and Vaughn's group, they've identified as essential and critical to the operations for the electric system, as well as water and sewer. And I'm happy to refresh some of those concepts from roughly a month ago. But basically what we have on the agenda this evening is a resolution that was prepared by your bond counsel that would formally authorize moving forward with that bond issue, again, in accordance with the capital program and the multi-year planning that the city has undertaken. With that, if I'm able to, Madam Clerk, I was going to maybe just put on the screen here for everybody just a little refresher from what we talked about roughly a month ago. See if I can get to the right place here.
Should be on the bottom that you could share your screen.
Very good. Bear with me.
Mine's on the bottom, sort of in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Bright green box right there. The one that sticks right out. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yep.
Very good. Thank you for the patience. So again, this is the presentation we talked through on April 1st as a refresher. So on the left side of the page, you see, as Ed mentioned, Mr. Liberty, the 2025 consolidated utility revenue bonds. As you recall, the structure that the city has in place allows you to borrow for multiple of these projects all at once. So you're not having to independently go sort of piecemeal with different financings for different projects. And so left-hand side of the page, the electric fund is about 35 million, 34,997,875. For water, it's 10,350,000. and for the local sewer portion of it, 2,250,000. So total, in terms of project funding, 47,577,875. As Mr. Liberty and others have mentioned, as we were talking about roughly a month ago, that number is actually a little bit smaller than what you had planned for in the budget last year. That's on purpose, so that what we're borrowing is really what we're going to be able to use, meaning you as a city, in terms of making these capital investments over the next year to two. The one other element of this program on the right-hand side of the screen is the stormwater. We're still working through that process, a little bit different financing process. We'll have that back in the deeper into the May timeframe. That's not part of the authorization tonight in terms of what is in front of the commission. And so with that, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll just pause there, see if there's any questions. Again, the resolution as prepared by bond counsel would really allow the process to continue moving forward. Before I pause, I'll kind of walk through what that process is.
Okay, can you just talk about how the bond gets paid back? 'Cause I
Absolutely.
think that's important for the people to know that they're not paying it back directly from taxes.
Correct. So these are what we call consolidated revenue bonds. And what that term revenue bond means is that the repayment source for the bond issue, which is very much like a mortgage, is the revenue of the various utility systems. And so in this context, that's electric, that's water, and that's sewer. And so these bonds are not payable from your general obligation taxing power. There's no taxes pledged to this. There's nothing coming out of the general fund. This is entirely out of the purposely segregated, again, utility funds that are not reliant on revenue from the general fund. So in no way, shape, or form is this tied to the taxing power of the city. This is very much tied to the revenues produced by each of those various funds, as Vaughn and Ed were just talking about.
Okay, I think that's important. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody have any questions before he continues? Go ahead, Mr. Segrich.
So one of the issues that comes up a lot is it seems like around all of our storm drains and manhole covers and so on, there's a lot of damage to the roads, which is coming from drainage systems and so on. Is fixing of that included within this bond, or is that another initiative, or would that be something that would be in here?
Well, if you want to cover that, Ed, but I believe that's going to be in another bond. Or bond.
Yeah, that sounds watery.
I'm going to defer to water. Thank you.
So I believe on the slide that Kyle just had up where we talked about the stormwater being kind of separate from this, because stormwater revenue is collected in non-ad valorem taxes on your Palm Beach County tax bill, it can't be part of this consolidated revenue bond. So what we're seeking for stormwater is essentially a loan for our capital needs for those projects to be, supplemented by the rate raise that we did this past year for stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
And that would directly tie into aging drainage, stormwater infrastructure that's failing, causing potholes, et cetera, et cetera.
And do we think that 2.7 is enough for that, or do we have a projection on what that actually would cost?
The 2.7 will get through the current capital planning and allow us to rehabilitate a significant amount of the stormwater infrastructure. We also have $750,000 set aside from the previous fiscal year that we will be using to do a holistic full system condition assessment study, hit everything we possibly can. Through that will probably come another list of capital projects, at which point we would likely need to borrow again. Something I've said many times up here is our stormwater system is in a reactive state and not a proactive state. So this 2.7 will be used to get us back to a point of functionality and, kind of get things back to stasis. And then we will come and create a new full plan that we will use to try to get back on top of things with this system.
So this gets us to a point where we can then become proactive.
Yes, hopefully.
Thank you.
Cross my fingers, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
For you, similar question, similar concern. As you know, I was very supportive of the raise on the stormwater because my feeling is similar to yours, that we're underperforming at this point. We know that the problem is going to get worse, not better, both from sea level rise and from likely increases in intensity of rainfall, which makes water management more difficult. I'll also just mention, I know it's not our sewers, it's the DOT sewers, I guess, underneath Lake and Lucerne, but on Lucerne, down by, I forget whether it's K or L, but probably L, it did not smell good. It is not good. And I've
Looked into that, we might have kind of shot ourselves in the foot because the FDOT came out to investigate the storm drains and found some illegal connections from businesses to their system.
whatever it is, the problem hasn't gone away, and it is kind of embarrassing that we have smelly stuff going on. I recognize that it's complicated because we don't necessarily own those sewers and we don't own the road on top of them, but our businesses sit right on top of it, and it was obvious. Everybody who went was in that area said, "Wow, boy, it does not smell good here." And I've as I've called it in a couple times, and we aren't to the bottom of that one. That's not for Kyle to fix that problem, but
Right.
and I don't know who is, but we're not there.
So let's come back to this item. And in order for it to go forward, we would need a motion.
But I'm
Well, let's get a motion about this item.
I know, but I do have more for the electric side, not for the water. I'm good on the water.
Do you want to make a motion to approve this or no?
I want to make a comment still. If I might.
Quickly, yeah.
Okay, thanks. This is a substantial amount of money that we were borrowing. I appreciate very much the clarification from the Mayor Pro Tem that this has nothing to do with taxing. This is strictly revenue financed. We've worked it through the Stantec modeling that we are reasonably confident that we're still going to be in good shape with our rates and can afford to do this. All of that I'm very supportive of and is good. The part that I think we, as the managing body for the electric utility, do have a due diligence requirement is what we are paying for with this 35 million on the electric side is work and equipment that will have a lifetime that's at least 30 years, if we're lucky, more like 50 years. It has a long time span. I still believe it would be prudent on our part, before we ask to borrow that we say, hey, just like if I'm going to get my knee surgery done, I go to my regular doctor and I also go to a second doctor. Do I really need to do this? Is this going to fix my situation for the next umpteen years or whatever? I think it would be wise to have an outside body that has experience with newer coming technology in electric and says, hey, we've looked through the SHRIP stuff. Everything you're doing very much positions you for anything that might come along. You're in good shape. You won't be looking 20 years out and saying, boy, I wish we'd have thought of that. And we could have foreseen that, but we didn't. I think it would be a wise investment to have that second opinion by
Okay.
folks that do.
I think that you said that last time too.
I did say that last time, and I believe, and Kyle might be able to recollect, that I don't think there was any problem from bond counsel that would, if anything, be probably an enhancement if we could show, hey, we've done our due diligence on that and checked that out. I don't know whether we can do it retroactively after we approve this, but I think definitely, I don't feel comfortable approving that big a borrowing without having done that due
Okay.
diligence.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So Mr. Liberty, does your team have experience with new technology?
Yes, we do. And the technology that we're talking about here, while it's not necessarily new to us, It's certainly not new to everybody who surrounds us. It's the same equipment that they buy: concrete poles, steel poles, wire, reclosers, insulators,
So it's
substations.
fair to say that this is industry standard technology that's been used widely throughout Florida?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, much of this work that we matching with these funds was approved by the DOE. So it had to be stuff that was known to work. We couldn't, use it crazy. We weren't going to do a trip to Mars and say we could figure it out, send us grant money. So the things that we were going to do are things that are basic blocking and tackling bread and butter technologies that are being deployed by utilities all over the country today.
And just any ballpark on what you think it would cost to have some consultant to come in and redo the due diligence?
We do that periodically. There's an independent engineers report, which we produce. One is underway right now, reviewing what we do as a condition of the bond. So we do that periodically. And like I said, the DOE would not have granted us the $23+ million if it wasn't in line with due diligence as well. So they do their own due diligence on the things that we proposed and felt it was appropriate. So we're moving ahead with subject to the approval with standard utility infrastructure. As a matter of fact, this is going to make our system more reliable than it is today. It's going to harden it, and it's going to give us additional switching capacity. So, for example, new technology, fiber optic, been around for many years. Faster communication with our substations, check that box. I don't think you'll find a consulting engineer who'll say, nah, don't go with fiber, go back to the pigeon and send a message. I don't think you'll find a consultant that says, no, you shouldn't put steel poles in, or you shouldn't put concrete poles in, or you shouldn't rebuild a substation, or you shouldn't go underground in some sections. So we're doing things consistent with best practices.
And is it fair to say that since you've joined Lake Worth Beach Utilities, our reliability has greatly increased?
It has greatly increased, and I hedge that and say I want it to continue to increase and make sure that we didn't have a one-time good year, that we sustain it over time. And there are many portions of our city that are waiting for the capital investment to see their systems upgraded, particularly the southern southeast part of the city, which is our next section to serve, which is one of the most underserved portions of our community.
So based on that, I would like to make a motion to approve.
To approve issuing the bond?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second? I know. So can I have the gavel, please? Here you go. I second the motion. Is there more discussion to be had?
You can.
Thank you. Kind of like holding it.
Yes, I want to be very clear. As Mr. Liberty said, I would in no way assume that we were not using industry standard practices or industry best practices. That's not the issue. The issue is unlike water, as we talked about at one time, technology in water for the most part is not changing very much. There are a few things, purification techniques may change a little bit, but how you move the water around, how you dig a well, how you get water up, how you pump it up, it's not an area that's changing. So industry standard is best practices and is fine. The electric field is very different. There is worldwide interest in cleaner ways of generating, in different ways of doing grids, in ways of linking electric vehicles as storage, doing distributed generation, a bunch of things that are evolving a lot. And the only reason that I think it would be wise to have an outside opinion from a group that does that kind of new technology things and thinks about that, that's their focus, is that gives us a due diligence that we've checked it out. Everything we're thinking about sets us perfectly up, and we're making the wisest investment that we could. It's not a critique of industry standard practices, but things are changing. For instance, one of the Vermont utilities figured out that actually it was cheaper for them to do battery systems for their clients than to maintaining their transmission lines. They decided that they did the analysis and said it's different. It's a different way of doing it. It's very different from what industry standard practice was, but it economically made better sense and it increased reliability. very different situation. That's a rural situation. We're not in anything like rural. I'm not saying that it's applicable here. I'm saying that the idea of having outside review from folks whose specialty is thinking forward, future-proofing on things, would be wise in the electric portion. You notice I'm not asking for it either on sewer or water, because I don't think those technologies are changing particularly. So there's, what we do now is likely to be still perfectly fine 30 years from now, 50 years from now. Electric, that's a little different. That's my reason for suggesting doing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We do have one public comment. Peggy Fisher. Oh, you have to turn that on.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. One point of order is Robert rules. You should have a motion before you have discussion. There is no point in wasting the public's time or staff's time to repeat from meeting to meeting the same point that you didn't get support for in a previous meeting. It is taking staff time. It is taking the public's time. Just because you don't get your way, just like a toddler, you don't keep repeating and screaming and hollering. We have experts in their fields working for this city, and we should rely on their expertise. That's why they were hired. That's why they continue to be employed. And I look for them to bring forward when they think the city needs to spend money on another study, because we're really well versed on doing studies in this city. Our director of electric utilities knows far more than anyone else in this room about electric utilities. And I think it's time we start giving him that respect he is due, and not repeatedly, meeting after meeting, questioning his ability. And I appreciate your direct question, Commissioner Segridge, and you're reminding us that it was asked and discussed previously in a meeting, Vice Mayor Pro Tem. So I just think we need to be about doing the business and not rehashing things from the past.
Thank you. No more public comment. We're going to vote. So do you have something you must say?
Yeah, I just want to add, future looking, this grant or this funding includes, among a number of things, bucket trucks to put people up in the air. That's the current technology to get people up in the air. We talk about future technology, battery energy storage. We're going to be doing a battery energy storage project under the GRIP grant that we received. That's a $5.5 million project. We can't get that solar energy from that landfill to the neighborhood and then to the school system where tomorrow's leaders are in elementary school without rebuilding that distribution system in that neighborhood. We're adding over 60 reclosers or sectionalizers so that you can segment the system and add microgrids. We don't know where those microgrids may be in the future, but we know you can't have them if you don't have segmentation. You can't have microgrids operate reliably if the poles fall down and the wires don't stay up. You have to have the proper wire size. You have to have the sectionalizers. The poles have to be strong enough. Electric vehicles. We have roughly 500 electric vehicles registered in the zip codes of 60 and 61, according to data we received last week. We know that on a regular basis, 100 of them are charging on the city-owned network. 100 different users each month, roughly 100, are using our network. We have to be able to increase the ability to move power to those resources, whether it's going into the resource or coming out of the resource. Microgrids are probably not going to work greatly here unless you find a use for the thermal energy that those microgrids produce, or put a huge amount of battery energy storage project in. There's no large thermal load here that has a profile to support something like cogen. It doesn't exist here. It might exist if you had a number of large hotels with central chiller plants and you could do something there. If you don't build the grid today, you can't have those things tomorrow. Battery energy storage. If you don't have a grid that'll move that power into the battery and out of the battery battery into the neighborhoods, you can't have battery energy storage. So the things we're doing today is to build that skeleton. Let's face it, we're replacing stuff, and I believe our residents probably know more about the pole in their backyard than I do. How many people feel confident that the pole that's in their backyard and out of the alleyways is going to stand up in a category 2 or 3 storm, regardless of what we do with batteries, electric vehicles, and future technology? We have thousands of poles which are going to fall over in those storms. We have to get at that infrastructure. I know you're passionate about the stuff that new technology. So am I. You can't have those things work if you don't have the basic infrastructure and systems to allow it to work. You have to build this stuff. We're at the beginning of that. We're building the basic infrastructure. Nothing that we're doing here is going to prevent us from deploying batteries or microgrids or more electric vehicles. In fact, we want those things to happen. That's why we want to build this infrastructure. There's dollars in here to get going on a replacement for the automated metering infrastructure. The system that was bought on a contract signed in 2015 or 2016 is failing. It was old technology then. We need new technology. We're not going to just pick one out of a hat and say, this is what we want. We're going to conduct a study with an expert in MI to tell us which type of system we should go with. That's in these dollars. Those are the types of things that are in here. We're not precluding the public from having the latest gee whiz technology down the road. But if you can't plug it into something solid, what do you have? And that's my comment on why we need these dollars.
Thank
It's
you.
the start of a process.
Yeah, that's very clarifying, actually. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Those against? Nay. It passes 2-1. Wow.
Madam Mayor.
What? I went too fast? You got to
Yeah,
read
by,
number third string.
by charter,
pass.
for all motions, we have to have at least 3.
So it
So
fails.
correct. All decisions here tonight have to be unanimous.
Could have said that before we started the meeting. You sure you don't want to change your mind?
Sure you don't want to change your mind? I mean, I find it very interesting that one would tell the doctor who says you need Operation X. You're the expert. I really don't need to get a second opinion on this.
Okay,
You
so
just-
it
just-
fails 2-1. And we'll move on to the next new business
Um,
B.
I
What
was-
you can do is if you want to take affirmative action on it, you can ask for another motion because the motion that was on the table failed. You can ask for another motion, motion to continue it to the next meeting, motion to deny it, but some type of affirmative action, because until you do something that passes a motion 3-0, there's no action taken on the item.
Okay, so it doesn't fail, it just doesn't pass, is what you're saying. Okay, so we need a motion to push it to the next meeting.
Motion to continue to the next meeting.
Okay, do we need a second for that?
Mhm.
Is there a second for that?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I was not aware of this requirement that because we have 2 people who are on vacation, not here, everything needs to be unanimous at this point to move. I would encourage my colleagues to consider some form of a external second opinion, because I don't think in terms of due diligence, there's anything crazy about that idea. I hear all of the things that many of the pieces of this, obviously bucket trucks and pole types, there's no question about. I still think the overall idea is not unreasonable. I would encourage my committee, I would be
Point of
willing to
order.
change my vote.
Why are we having discussion when there's a motion on the floor?
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and it's not seconded. Now it is seconded.
Yes, to take it out.
Yes. He took it. I second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Okay, so we will push that to the next meeting when we have a full house. All right, next, can I go on to the next one, Madam Attorney?
Yes.
Okay, new business B, resolution number 19, 2025, consolidated utility revenue bond 2020 reauthorization. And I believe this is water?
Yes.
Okay. So Director Baker, Yeah, I would, and then we can make the motion after your presentation, but I will, I don't want to start having discussion until we do make a motion. So I'm just gonna make that clear to my colleagues. Go ahead.
Bond Baker, again, water utilities. I don't want to scare anybody with the word bond. This is an old bond, so to speak, where we had residual funds left over in a project that is now complete. That was the South Palm Park, 18th Avenue South Stormwater Pump Station. And we need it to complete the Parrot Cove project. So that is all this does is tops up the Parrot Cove Stormwater Improvements Project fund.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Segrich? Mr. No Segrich? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That passes 3-0. Next, new business C, the change order 2 to agreement with PMB Underground Construction Inc. for Parrot Cove Stormwater Improvement Projects. Oh, I'm assuming this is to actually do what you just said.
Yes, so this goes hand in hand with the first item with the funds to do so. One of the 4 outfalls in the Parrot Cove project extends pretty far into the intercoastal because of navigational concerns and also because with that pipe being submerged and being in bad condition, there's too much infiltration coming into it to complete the work that we need to do. This change order authorizes the contractor to create a new head wall closer to the shore. It will make things easier for our maintenance staff. It will be less of a boating hazard, so to speak, and will allow us to wrap this up and finish the project.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes 3-0. New business D, thank you, Vaughn. New business D, agreement with Trip Electric Motors, Inc. for pump motor and equipment services. Still you. Oh, I would have said Ed. Okay, go ahead.
This one is just, we regularly work with Trip and typically have a piggyback agreement with them at all times for when something is wrong with one of our pumps that is more complicated than our in-house staff is equipped to handle. We send it to Trip. So it's just a piggyback agreement to keep up with.
Okay,
pumps,
thank you.
motors, repairs.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. New business E, agreement with Atlantic Pipe Services LLC for storm pipe inspections, cleaning and repairs.
Motion to approve
Well,
too?
hold on, let's see if she wants to tell us anything about it.
This is my last one. This is actually kind of a new technology, so to speak, as we've been talking about tonight with storm, where a lot of times the problem with a storm pipe is only at the joint. To line from manhole to manhole with these massive diameter pipes is extremely expensive. So this company that we're looking to piggyback off of, a contract they have with the Villages, I believe, they offer sectional lining, which is pretty much 2 linear feet segments of lining that would allow us to seal joints without having to pay the entire cost of manhole to
Is
manhole.
that like putting the little purple glue just on the joint, but not in the entire pipe?
It's the sleeve, and so typically, you've dragged the entire sleeve from manhole to manhole and then cure it in place
Oh,
and patch
okay.
it up. But this, they send in just for the joint and they blow it up with a balloon to cure it, and then it's all set. And
Very
it's much
cool.
less expensive.
Thank you. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you. New business app, work order number 20 with Hooper Corp to provide construction services for the relocation of electric feeder circuits at 1615 10th Avenue North. That sounds electric. We're going this way.
It is electric. So this is a project that's driven in part by a customer looking to move some infrastructure. The customer has contributed through the contribution in the construction process, a payment in the amount of $131,000 and change. The total project is $327,000.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Let's have a motion first.
Okay,
Then we'll ask
sorry.
the question.
Yeah.
So can somebody make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Just, can you clarify a little bit? I know that this is at the corner, at one point, a Wawa was thinking of going there, corner of 10th, southeast corner of 10th and A, correct? The empty
believe
lot
so.
that's been empty a long time.
Yeah, right now the infrastructure is down the center of the lot. We need to move it to the edge to get out of the way of construction, and the customer is going to pay for it.
And it undergrounds under 10th.
Yep.
I see the poles there and going,
Mhm.
so this basically moves the underground to the south side of the
Yeah,
lot.
we move things out of the way so they can build, and they're gonna pay for a big piece of it. We'll harden the rest, which is really a good idea for us.
Yeah.
To go ahead and do that.
I
Okay,
stick by my
any,
motion.
super. Go ahead.
A good chunk of that cost is for system hardening. So while we're in there, we're fixing problems.
Yeah, so what we'll do is rather than, put back to the stuff to the old standard, we'll put it back to the new standard and harden it up and make sure it's built to a category 5 standard for reliability.
Thank you. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Passes 3-0. All right, where are we? New business G, professional service agreement with Leidos Engineering LLC for the electric utility rate related services. And I believe electric.
Yes, this is electric as well. Leidos is a company that we use for our rate making purposes. They do cost of service studies. They assist us on PCA reviews from time to time. They take a look at rate issues. They'll be assisting us on the negotiation of the Palm Beach State College contract, all aspects of rate design. On occasion, to do a cost of service study, but various miscellaneous things that are really separate than what Stantec does. Stantec does cash flow modeling for us. This is the actual getting into the nitty gritty of understanding the cost of service, the types of rates that we should have with our customers, analysis from time to time. And we haven't done a cost of service study now in about 4+ years. It's time to refresh it to make sure that as we do rate design going forward, coming out of the budget process, our rates are correct.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, discussion, go ahead.
Director Liberty, you mentioned that we haven't done a study in about, I can't remember what you said, 4
A little
years.
over 4 years. 4 years ago, we did the cost of service study. Prior to that, I think we had gone almost, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years without a cost of service study.
And, but this is a renewal of a contract, so we were paying them presumably roughly 45,000 a year for the past several years.
We don't always use the full amount of the contract. It's an hourly rate contract, and it allows us to spend up to that much under the contract, but we don't spend it just because we have it. If we have a specific task that we need them to do, they'll give us an estimate for the hours that it takes to do the work, and then we do the work and we manage it within the budget.
And do you happen to know ballpark what we've spent on that the last few years? Ballpark?
I hate to be held accountable in our ballpark. I want to say in the range of $15,000 to $30,000
A year.
We haven't used them exorbitantly. In a year, when we do a cost of service study, it'll spike up.
Right.
When we launched the PCA, we spent more with them. Obviously, the year that we did the full blown cost of service study, that was more money back then.
Thank you. Commissioner Segrich.
Are these guys considered experts, external experts to the city?
Yes, they are. They definitely are.
And so they're contributing to help us keep costs down?
Absolutely. More importantly, I mean, besides doing that, they were instrumental in understanding that 1990 vintage contract with Palm Beach State College, trying to decipher what it meant, translate that to current cost structures, because the rates designs have changed at the competing utility that it was priced against. Our rate design has changed, and then coming up with what the new billings would look like. It's a very complicated exercise that they have the expertise to perform.
So it sounds like we're using an outside expert where it's prudent and they're already helping us save money.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
And produce new revenues.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. We've done discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that also passes. Before, because we're at the end of the meeting, before we adjourn, we are going to have a comment from the city manager. You look like you want to talk.
We are.
Okay.
No, I was just speaking with our finance director. Going back to new business A from tonight, based on the timing of what I don't know if you want to come up and talk about this. It seems like we would not be able to wait until the next utility meeting.
Okay,
So I don't know if this needs to be an emergency addition for our May 6th meeting, which is
Correct.
literally next.
So yes, the
Tuesday.
financial advisor to know if this could be May 6th meeting. We already have like rating calls already scheduled. I mean, we had the rating call today, but our ratings are coming on the 13th. It will just push us back further, but
Okay.
we just wanted clarity, I guess.
Okay.
Yes.
does anybody have any issue with putting it on the 6th when there's more members present?
I was just hoping to comment that I would be willing to revisit that right now. I see that there is no support for doing the due diligence, so
It's
I.
just because, and I don't think it's that we don't have any support. I'm going to speak for myself. It sounds like the due diligence has been done, or else it's within the money that's being spent as they go, they're doing the due diligence. That's what I'm hearing. I would never say, go do anything you want without any studies and no due diligence. What I'm hearing is it's done.
I'm, in my opinion, it's not, but
Okay.
I'm hearing that for what I think would be appropriate for that amount of money, I don't see the support. I don't envision that it will get here. I do not want to delay this. I imagine there are some consequences to not voting for it today. I would be happy to revisit that right now and I'm fine with putting it on the 6th, but I'm also fine with
Okay.
revisiting it now. We might need instruction from our attorney as to
I was just.
what mechanism
Yeah.
we have to use to do that. But I'm game for,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, no, I was not aware of that aspect.
Yeah, they had met
I stand
all
by,
day based on this, I think.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware of what the finance director is referring to, we had meetings today with both Fitch and Moody's. That's myself and the finance director, Director Liberty, Troy, Vaughn, basically all of our utilities. So that's part of the whole rating process.
yeah,
No, I would.
So hold on. Before we do that, let's go to the city attorney. If we want to rewind,
We want to rewind. So normally with a motion that's been adopted,
but it hasn't. We just pushed it. Can't
we did
only
a
push it
a
to-
motion to continue it. So to rehear that motion within the same meeting, it's a little unusual, but usually the makers of the motion and who voted in favor it could make a motion to undo the motion to continue and then
So
open
literally rewind.
rewind.
Okay.
So first we'd have to do a motion to retract the motion to continue.
Motion to retract the motion to continue.
second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now that would then open up the floor for a new motion on
On
new
A.
business agenda item A.
Okay, do I
To approve.
motion to approve?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Problem
you.
fixed. I believe.
Yes, good job. Thank you. I think that makes it very fair. Now, I'm sure everybody wants to go home, but they can't until somebody makes a motion.
Are we good with everything else?
I'm good.
Oh, Motion to adjourn,
Second.
All in favor?
for discussion.
Go. Everybody go home. Thank you very much. Thank you for not being too mean to me the first time.